Hey guys, I'm live. So, whoa, why does my hair look like gray? My hair is turning gray, guys. Dang it. Um, how's everybody doing? I'm just waiting, trying to figure out like how this is gonna go down here. Let me hold on a second. So I might wait when it starts. I might just wait to see if everything is all right. Um, and then just to make sure they don't say like no live streaming, because sometimes they have that, they say no live streaming there. I haven't seen it. I've looked on all the sites and everything, and there's nothing that says that. So before I actually do share my screen, I want to make sure they don't say that, because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And if they do have that rule, then we won't be able to. I don't know what the rules are going to be. So just that's what I was trying to say yesterday. I don't know. So what I'll do is when it starts, I'll screen record my screen, and then if they say, then I'll at least have it, because I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do it if we're not allowed to. But usually it'll say on the site, it'll say like right there where you go in, like you can't do it. And it hasn't said that. So I'm just kind of waiting to see. So if for some reason I can't, I apologize, but we'll see. It's definitely, it is today. It's just, it starts in 15 minutes. I mean, I have the link and everything. I'm waiting, but I want to see if they say what they say the rules are. Yeah. So sometimes you're allowed, sometimes you're not, you know. Ruby Frankie, they didn't allow it. But there was a big thing that said it right on the site. This hasn't said it anywhere, so that's why I'm waiting to see if they are gonna say it. So yeah. I guess we'll see, guys. It's the thing, I don't know until it happens, so I'm gonna wait. I have some things people sent, like different things we could watch, but I'm just after this, so we'll see. Yeah, so it's just waiting. Who sent me. Yeah, hold on. For some reason. Let me screen record. I'm gonna screen record right now. Oh, thanks for joining. Because the court reporter is actually up there. I have it in a small window right now. She's actually up there. She's by herself right now. It's a Zoom. It's all Zoom. It's a Zoom. So it's going to be, you know, Zoom where everybody is in a box. I don't know. The link was public. So, you know, like for instance, you know, when they did Letitia's trial, hers was WebEx. And then they did the Adventures with Purpose had a Zoom, but then one of the creators accidentally didn't mute and they had to cancel it because they could hear him. And they were asking everybody to mute. And they had to cancel the whole thing. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was funny. But yeah, I'm just waiting. I have it. She's up there right now by herself. I mean, she's got the screen. We'll see. I got the screen recording in case if I'm nervous. She's gonna be like, nope, I don't know. I'm just gonna wait here and chat with you guys until if she says something. Like I said, I want to wait to share till now. If they start and she doesn't, they don't give that rule. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're good because it's not on the site, it's not on the link, it's not anywhere. So I would think if it was a rule for this one, they would have put it on there, right? So I don't think if they don't say anything, I don't see how. I even had Soul look for me to make sure I didn't overlook it, but there's nothing. No. Huh. Anyway, so let me say hi to some people. Evie. So wait, are you Evie? You were the one that has the. Did you email me? Wait, who? I forget. Was it you? Whoever had the 3-hour live with Steve? I probably only want to watch. Oh, you guys, my live got taken down yesterday, by the way. Policy violation. So if you guys are wondering about that, freaking YouTube. I don't know. So it fell under. Well, let me open this up and see. It fell under why am I black? Wow. Oh, my screen was black for a minute. It fell under bullying and harassment, which makes me mad because I freaking spent a lot of time on that timeline. So thank God, usually when YouTube takes it down, the video's gone. So if you don't have a copy of it, and if it's a live, you don't have a copy. So it's not like a pre-record where you edit it and you have a copy. It's live. And the only reason I have a copy of it is because StreamYard, I have this premium where it saves like 50 hours of the past recordings. It'll save. I mean, you have to delete them as you go because you can only hold 50 at a time. And I had just cleared it out. So I was able to download it because I had it on StreamYard. So what I've been doing all day when I got home, I've been editing the timeline part at least. And just in case it had something to do with the addresses, I've been blurring them all out. But the thing is most of the addresses were in the court. I mean, like Jason's was, Christine's was, they were all there. But just in case, I have been like blurring out, and it's so hard because I move, with Google Earth, I'm like moving. So like the blur, you have to keep like as it moves, like switching it. So it's taken me time, but I don't want to lose that timeline. It was really good. I was really proud of it. So I'm going through and trying to blur out all the addresses, and just gonna re-upload that with everything blurred out, because I mean you don't need to know the addresses for it to be interesting. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could still go through the Google Maps and just it blurs what the actual addresses are. So, and I didn't even share the only names that I shared were the names that were already out that weren't redacted. But it might not even be the timeline part. It might have been the other part. That live was 7 hours long, so it could have been all the Bonnie and all the other part. I don't know I don't know. They don't tell you. The sucky thing with YouTube is they do not freaking tell you what it is. It's so funny because she keeps looking up at the screen. I keep thinking she could see me, but she can't because I have my audio and video blocked over there. But it's but because my video on my stream is right here, I keep thinking she could see me. Like, oh, she's listening, but I have it all. But anyway, so I'm working on that. I was so mad. I woke up this morning and I spent like all that time after I got off the live. Did you see? I had a list of all the time stamps. So before I got in the shower, I did a timestamps, and there's probably like 50 different things. Timestamps. I timestamped everything out. And then they take it down. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. 7 hours, timestamps, and it's gone. But thank you, Elvie, for joining. Sorry, I didn't even thank you, Evie. Oh wait, Evie, you joined. Or no, L and Evie joined. Thank you. Thank you. what kind of YouTube channel are you creating, Dragonfly? What kind are you doing? Hi, Sleuth Investigates. Hi, Karen. Hi, Moki. Trisha. I probably should have waited to screen record until it started, huh? I'm going to stop it right now. I mean, it didn't start yet. Just remind me to start. Anyway, you know what? I should make sure. Hold on 1 second. Let me delete some stuff here to make sure I have enough room. My computer. Oh, my computer's coming in today. By the way, it's supposed to be here. It should have been here by 2, but it needs a signature. So my mom's down there. So it's probably going to come while I'm live. Hold on, I'm just deleting some videos to make sure I have enough room for the screen record. Which I'm sure I do. I don't know. But just in case. All right. Anyway. All right. Just waiting. Yeah, I know. And I don't know. I mean, the policy of violation is so vague. And then, like, I remember last time I got a policy violation, I asked, can you tell me what specific thing that is wrong so I know, so I could redo it? And then I know next time, and they won't tell you the timestamp. They just say, nope, this is what the policy of violation, and it falls under cyberbullying and harassment. But that has a lot of different things under it. It's so vague. So the last one that got a policy of violation was an incident report. It was the Matt and Savannah case, the boyfriend and girlfriend that got killed. It was like drug deal gone bad. And it wasn't even that long. It was just an incident report that was like 2 pages. I read it, and it had the addresses of 2 of the victims, that their apartment, they were dead. They didn't live there anymore. So how does that go against policy? You know what I'm saying? It's like, we know the Watts house address. We know the Idaho 4 address. We know, like, these houses are their locations in true crime. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Some of this stuff, just because it's an address, I don't know. But they wouldn't tell me, so it had to be, though, because there was really nothing else in there that it could have been. So it's just, I don't know. Hey, Lewis. So I might be quiet for a minute, guys, when it starts, just so I could hear what she says. I'm going to put myself on mute. So if you guys come in, you're like, why aren't you talking? If I just stop because it just starts real quick, then before I share my screen, I just might be quiet, like I said, because I want to make sure what the rules are. So let me make sure my Bluetooth is connected. Yeah, audio is connected. Okay. Actually, let me make sure. I want to play a video to make sure I could hear. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So let me share my screen. Let me double check my share screen. So if I have to do it real quick, it's good. Okay. Share. All right. And I think I'm going to press screen record in 2 minutes. I'll start screen recording. So like I said, if we do miss anything while I'm listening to the rules, I could always play it back. I'll have it screen recorded. They are, but now that I see how freaking picky TikTok is, YouTube is like lenient compared to TikTok. I can't even believe you can't say drug on TikTok. She said rug, and you can't say kill. Like, we're allowed to say that. Like those ones. It's just like the hot words are like the S word, the R word, the P word, Some of them we don't know for sure. She keeps looking up. Some of them we don't know because they don't give you a list, but it's like the list that we all think are the words. The unalive one, the S word for sure, because I've seen like there's been channels that got like demonetized for talking about it. It's just so crazy. Hey, interrogation files. All right, I'm gonna screen. I think I'm gonna screen record. She keeps looking up. Why am I nervous? Well, I'm nervous with the results, and I'm nervous what this is really even gonna be. Like, is he gonna give the results? I wonder if she's, if like I'm gonna be. Is she gonna say something? And I can't hear. I can't hear. What am I doing wrong? I'm really mad. Hold on. Yes, I'm Tiffany with zavgirl. It's a ZAV and then girl 2. Hold on, guys. 1 second. Okay.
I didn't invite them. It's okay. In all candor, I don't know that we can exclude them. You tell me. I like the court reporter with more than 35 years experience. Have not had this opportunity. So
yes, I don't know what policy is on the press, Mr. Gardner. So
can you hear? Can you guys hear? They're trying to
I'm not a
discuss what
lawyer.
they want to
I'm
do.
just, and I don't even play one on TV. I'm just a court reporter.
In the court.
They're trying to decide. I like Kevin Shirley's all about it.
And
Way's
the person
lawyer was
named
like,
SU Sue is joining, and it's taking them a little while to.
can you hear, guys?
Big screen.
I just went Tiffany because I didn't know what to put, and I just it wouldn't let me not.
Wow, I would have spent more
put a
time with my
picture.
makeup if I.
Well, my name is Tiffany,
At
but I
me.
didn't put
Well, I
Zavgirl.
wore a
But they asked
tie.
me. I told him Zavgirl.
Okay, Sue is trying to join. Okay, now let me see. Can I admit you, Sue? Now it says I've got 2 SUs. Okay, now we have SU. So Sue,
Oh,
SU.
I already told him.
could
I
you
said I'm with
please identify
Zavgirl.
yourself.
They
please?
asked me already. I said I'm with Zavgirl. Yeah, I was just honest. They're all from media. Jane
You are
is
muted.
Thomas. I think they're going to be okay. I think they are
Sue,
because of
SU, could you please identify
Shirley.
yourself and unmute yourself, please?
Sue.
Okay, Sue, I need you to identify yourself. I cannot proceed unless I know who you are. So if you do not admit yourself, I'm going to have to kick you out, put you in the waiting room, and I don't want to do that. So if Sue, SU, if you could please unmute yourself and identify yourself, please.
It's gone.
Oh, I didn't mean to offend anybody. I just, I just need to know who's present. It's a part of my job. Okay. Yeah, I didn't mean to. Did I sound mean? I didn't mean to. Okay. Now we have me, we have the state, we have the defense counsel, we have our deponent, and we have, do I have? Yes, and I have 3 people, and I have a Dr. Coyne.
Going.
Yes, our Mr. Shirley and Mr. Gardner, are you ready to begin, and are you okay with all the people here?
I'm unfamiliar as to what rights the other people have to be here other than the individuals who are actually participating in this deposition, let alone the people that we are going to be consulting with to conduct the deposition. So I'm a little curious as to how we are allowing members of media to participate in this particular deposition.
Well, I don't think they're participating. I think they're just auditing. They obviously can't cross-examine Dr. Rubino. Can they be present? I don't know. That's a First Amendment issue. And I'm a little shy on my research in that area as of today. So
I can interject if I may. Yes, I'm not here to ask any questions. I have been keeping up with this case for like the last 4 months, and I found the link and the information to this meeting on the Clerk of Circuit Court website in the court records inquiry. There's a link to that with the username and password. So I believe that's how we all are here.
well, yeah, there's a notice to take in deposition that's in the court file. I don't think Mr. Gardner is suggesting that any of you obtain that information unlawfully. So
I said I was here media.
the
We all
doctor.
said media when we first came in.
He's a
Come
real
on,
trying to
let
put
us in
context
here.
for you
Let
guys.
us.
I'm
And
sorry.
I'm not, Andreas, I'm not going to depose Dr. Coyne. I think we were quite clear on that.
I'm liking
Look, my
Shirley.
position is this, we're gonna conduct this deposition as we normally conduct any and all depositions. Any outside comments or commentary should be automatically excluded and or put into a waiting room and or deleted from this particular deposition feed.
I am
That's my
not writing
position.
right now, Mr. Gardner, so you know, so. Because
That's,
we,
yeah, I'm just letting you know, that's my position. Anyone who interrupts this particular deposition, should be automatically, have their communication cut off, and I'm not willing to proceed forward according to this. This is not, this is serious business, and I'm not inclined on making this a circus. So let's, proceed accordingly.
okay, so we are going to proceed, and if someone says anything or interrupts, they will be put in the waiting room. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct, Neil.
And Madam Court Reporter, you've already noted who the other three folks are.
Yes, I do have their names down, and I do
That's fine.
have where they, who they represent or who they work with.
Okay.
So, doctor. I have seen the doctor's identification, and I don't see the doctor. I'm sure he's on the whole, oh, let me put my left arrow. Maybe I can see it then. There you are, Dr. Rubino. I'm going to administer your oath right now. If you would raise your right hand, please. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much, sir. You can put your hand.
Good afternoon, Dr. Rubino.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Thank you.
can.
Sir, you went ahead and prepared a report for us that's dated the 13th of August of 2024. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, I have a copy of your CV. Is that, in fact, accurate? You provided that to a colleague of mine in the Bolero case. Has anything changed since then?
I think that's been different is make sure the sportsification up to 220.
I am so sorry, sir. You cut out there. You said the only thing that's different is make sure the sports, and then you cut out.
Certification is good until 2025.
Thank you so much.
3 years now.
Now, sir, would you please let me know how many times have you gone ahead and testified in court?
At trial, approximately 78 times.
And has that been in criminal cases or civil cases?
That's criminal.
Okay. And how many times have you been detained by the defense?
100%.
Okay. And what is your hourly fee, sir?
Now it is $400 an hour for anything besides travel, which is $200 an hour.
How much time have you gone ahead and spent on this particular case?
Oh, I haven't built it yet, so I don't know. About 7 hours so far.
Excuse me, we have someone who is in the waiting room. Would you like me to admit them?
Who might that be?
It says Aslan, Azlan.
I'm not familiar with that person. So.
Is it, Mr. Shirley, do you agree to not admit that person?
Well, I think we need to find out who it is. If it's somebody from a legitimate news agency, to leave the others admitted and to exclude that person may result in actions that we don't anticipate or desire.
Okay, I'm going to admit them and ask them who they are, please.
Dude, the prosecutor's going to get mad. I hope nobody else joins. 'Cause if
This
this
is
keeps-
Kathy Nicholson, the court reporter. We have someone who
He's gonna
just
get
logged in, AZLAN. Could I have your name, please, sir? Or ma'am? Oh, connecting to audio.
Dude, I know nobody else
Hi.
joined.
This is Kathy Nicholson, the
Skip
court
ruin it.
reporter. I have someone who was just admitted, Aslan, AZLAN. Could you please give me your name, please?
Dude, she's going to ruin it. Just let it, I would just,
Aslan,
Don't.
could you please give me your name, please? You are muted. Could you
just-
unmute yourself, please, and give me your name, please?
I'll just go. I wish
I'm
that, I
very
hope nobody
sorry, but
else,
if you do not unmute yourself and give me your name, I will have to put you in the waiting room.
nobody
As the
else
court
come in.
reporter,
We
I
could
have
watch
to
it.
make a note of everybody who is present in the deposition.
Don't worry, I'm
So
muted on there.
I would have to have
so
your name
just
and
you guys could hear
fulfill
me.
my duty. They are gone.
Good.
Mr.
No more.
Gardner, can we have an agreement between us that this is disruptive and that any further attempts to admit themselves to this deposition they'll be excluded?
Absolutely.
Okay, we can't keep doing this.
Thank
We'll
you.
be here all the evening.
Yes. Thank you, Shirley.
Right.
I'm liking Shirley.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
I will
liking
not let you
Shirley.
know if anybody signs in.
I
That's
like
fine. Thank you.
Shirley. He's actually
Thank
being
you. I'm
cool
sorry.
today.
Would you like me to read the last question?
No, I am familiar with the last question. Thank you very much. I think it's been adequately addressed.
Thank you.
Madam Court Reporter, we're going to start off with a new question. Dr. Rubino, how were you contacted in this particular case?
Wendy Perez contact me, or Kevin. Let's see. Wendy Perez.
Okay, when were you contacted, sir?
In March.
Were you asked to do anything back in March?
I was waiting for a report, as best I can remember, but that report never got done. So I didn't get anything done until he was actually convicted.
Okay. Next question I have for you, sir, is what percentage of your income is from legal work as opposed to clinical?
Roughly 10%.
So you're currently seeing patients?
Yes, I am.
Have you authored any treatises, articles, or textbooks, sir?
I have not.
In this particular case, could you please advise me as to what materials it is that you were provided to review?
Department of Juvenile Justice base sheet. Basically, Justice Investigation Services, Shirley Wilson, investigation, case report. It looks like it's some work that was done by Shirley that was investigating.
Okay.
Tunda Wilson, Lee County Medical Records, Part 1 and Part 2. Wade Wilson Medical Records 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Wade Wilson letter.
I'm sorry, who Wilson letter?
Wade Wilson letter.
Thank you.
Wade Wilson school records. Entitled Wade Wilson documents. And then double files of Armor medical records, which are just duplicates of the ones I just mentioned.
Okay, so just so that I understand, you said you had a criminal justice face sheet, you said you had a case report, you had a series of medical records, you had a letter from Mr. Wilson, and you had his school records. Is that accurate?
It's accurate, yes.
All right. Anything else, sir?
That is all. Well, I have his imaging.
And that was what was just conducted. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, and I'm assuming that also includes the CT scans from April of 2023. Is that right?
Give me a second. Yes.
All right.
Maybe
Now,
the
when you
next-
say you received medical records, are those the records from the jails?
I didn't find them useful, so let me take a look here. Yeah, it's all Armor.
Okay.
So everything is from jail.
All right, fair enough. Did you meet with anyone or consult with anyone to come to any conclusions in this particular case?
Say that one more time. I missed the first part.
Yes. Did you meet with anyone or consult with anyone to come up with any of your conclusions in this particular case?
I met with Wade Wilson as well as the defense team.
Did you speak to a Dr. Eisenstein?
That's his report I was waiting for, but I don't recall. I might have, but I don't recall listening. I talked to Eisenstein about other things, so I'm not sure if I talked to him about Wade Wilson.
Okay. Did you speak or review a report by Dr. Hyman Eisenstein?
Not that I recall. I have nothing in my records. I didn't have any. I had no reports.
Okay.
And I don't remember talking to him.
Okay. Did you speak or review any reports made to you regarding Mr. Wilson from Dr. Mark Mills?
No.
Did you conduct any of your own tests or examinations upon Mr. Wade Wilson?
Yes.
What exactly did you do as it relates to any tests or examinations upon Mr. Wade Wilson?
I performed a neurological examination of Mr. Wilson.
And how did you go about doing that?
I must say it was challenging because he was under restraint most of the time when I was trying to examine him. Basically, I did a test called a MoCA, Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test.
Okay.
And then I evaluated his cranial nerves, which is I evaluate his the look in his eyes, his pupils. I check his extra ocular movements, check the sensation of his face. I check to see if his face is symmetrical. See if his tongue comes out straight, whether he smiles straight. And that's all I can really check on in the situation we're in.
Okay.
Then I'll do a motor examination, which I'll check his strength, which is challenging to do when he's restrained,
Mhm.
as well as check his tone, which is also challenging when he's restrained.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that for me, please?
Also check his tone, muscle tone.
Okay.
difficult to do when he's restrained like he was.
Mhm.
Check his sensation, his D10 reflexes, his coordination by doing a finger and nose test, evaluate his gait, as well as assess Romberg or not. Romberg is where I have him standing with his feet together and he closes his eyes.
Okay. All right. Let's take this one at a time, Doctor.
Yes.
You indicated that you initially spoke with Mr. Wilson and had a consult with him. Is that correct?
I initially did the exam first, which is backwards because the way the jail was set up. Usually I
Okay.
talk to him first because I like to know what I'm looking for. Here I had to kind of do it things blind, where I was examining him, then I took a history.
So you're telling me that you went ahead and conducted the neurological exams before you went ahead and had a consult with Mr. Wilson. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what did you begin with first?
Montreal cognitive assessment.
All right. Let's talk a little bit of Montreal cognitive assessment. How did you go ahead and have him perform or conduct the Montreal cognitive assessment test?
I have a sheet called Montreal cognitive assessment, and I put it in front of him with a pen, and I ask start with trails, which is the first test.
Mhm.
And then I give him the directions on how to do it, and he does it. Then he's got to copy a cube,
Yep.
and then he has to draw a clock with numbers on it, and then put time on it.
Okay.
You want to go to the next section?
Yeah, I believe the next section is a series of animals.
Yes.
Okay.
You named those correctly. Lion, rhinoceros, and camel.
Mhm.
He's asked to remember 5 words. Then he's asked to repeat 5 numbers in forward order and 3 numbers in reverse order. Then he's supposed to read a bunch of I'll read a bunch of letters, and he's supposed to tap every time he hears the letter A. Then he does serial sevens from 100, which is subtracting 7 by 100 and 7 from that, 7 from that. Then he's to repeat a sentence after I tell it to him exactly. Then he has to give me as many words that begin with a certain letter. That letter is F in 1 minute. Then he has
Then he has-
to, excuse me?
He has to basically tell you the similarities between various items, and then you give him a delayed recall examination test, which indicates he has to recall certain words: face, velvet, church, daisy, and red. And then
Yes.
he has to go ahead and determine his orientation. Is that correct? Which is basically by telling us the date, month, year, day, and place and city. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. How did Mr. Wilson perform on the MOCA test?
He scored a 22 out of 30.
Okay. And what did that indicate to you?
It indicates he has impairment.
Why?
Well, the impairments are in executive and memory.
Well, can you tell me exactly what name and describe the specific test from the MOCA that revealed that he was impaired in the executive function and delayed memory?
His cube was horrible. I mean, it was nowhere near a cube. The clock. The numbers were not completed. Contour of the clock guy actually isn't that good, but I give him credit for that. And he put a time on it that wasn't the time that was told. Actually, you just kind of put X in the middle.
Mhm.
So those give him a 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 on the executive function. And then on delayed recall, he's only able to get the velvet out of the delayed recall.
Okay.
And then on orientation, he didn't know what day it was. He knew it was a I forget when I saw it. Let's see what I saw. I'm on August 9th.
Do you know whether or not the MOCA has any internal validity measures, doctor?
It does not have any internal validity measures.
Well, how do you determine whether or not the person is giving good effort?
I think he was giving good effort because he gave me 12 words in a minute, which is a cutoff is 11. So he did good on that. He did serial sevens, which is hard to do. So the things that he could do, he did. I have no reason to believe that he would not remember something on purpose and then not fudge something else. He did good in the middle of the section, but he failed on the executive and memory. So
Well, how does MOCA assess the memory function?
you remember 5 words, you do something else, you come back and repeat those 5 words. That's short-term memory.
And how many did Mr. Wilson give?
1.
Okay. Well, how do you know that you didn't actually remember more without the internal validity check?
I really don't know that because there's no validity check. However, why would he do 100% on serial sevens and words and then say, hey, I'm not going to remember these words. I'm going to start faking it.
Well, you agree with me, sir, that he could also be deceptive during the test and give you false answers. Isn't that correct?
He could be deceptive. Yes, he give me false answers. That's correct.
All right. Well, would you say that the 10-minute MOCA was a better measure of cognitive function than 6 hours of neurological psychological testing, sir?
It all depends on if the neuropsychological testing was valid or not, because that has a validity test in it.
Okay.
But I was not given any kind of neuropsychological testing. All I have is a MOCA.
Right. And sir, isn't the MOCA a screening instrument that essentially takes less than 10 minutes to administer?
It is screening, but I'm not a psychologist. I'm a neurologist screening for cognitive dysfunction.
Well, are you certified in administering that particular test?
I'm not actually.
Okay.
Uh,
Are you familiar with the fact that successful completion of the official training and certification is mandatory for anyone who administers a paper-based MOCA test according to the MOCA Cognition website? That's
It's run by a doctor who makes you pay all his money. I signed up for it, but then I couldn't get back into it. So it's kind of a racket.
okay. So you're not certified in administering that. Is that correct?
I'm not, but it's science to do this test.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. You said
Yep.
I'm not, but,
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to do it.
thank you.
All right.
I ain't certified in the rest of my neurological examination, which I'll gladly put forth.
All right. Well, we'll get to that, sir. Is that all we were able to determine as it relates to the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test, sir?
That
Have
he
we
has
covered everything there?
that he has some cognitive impairment. Yes, that's all I was able to glean from that because that's all it's powered to do.
And we can't determine whether or not any of his responses were valid or not because there's not an internal validity test to that particular assessment. Isn't that correct?
That's true.
All right. Now, the next test you indicated to me was that you conducted a cranial nerve test. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what exactly is involved in the cranial nerve test?
I will check his pupils to see if they're responsive to light equally and symmetrical. I will check his extraocular movements. I will check his facial sensation, facial symmetry, and with smiling. Whether he can hear my fingers rubbing on each side. That's 8, 9. Check his palate if it goes up straight. Check to see if his tongue goes out. And then I'll check his shoulders if he shrugs asymmetrically, which is cranial nerve 11.
And how did he perform on your cranial nerve test?
On his extraocular movements of his eyes, he has horizontal jerk nystagmus bilaterally.
Okay, and what does that indicate to you?
That indicates that he has a problem with his vestibular ocular movements. So it can mean that he has a problem with his midbrain or vestibular apparati.
Or his what?
Vestibular apparatuses.
Thank you.
Okay, and what would give rise to that issue?
Typically, head injury does.
Okay.
But having a cold or something like that can also do it, but he did not have a cold.
Is there anything else that would give rise to that, sir?
Possibly Meniere's disease, but he had no hearing loss. And they reporting ringing in the ears, so he didn't have Meniere's disease. And or acute intoxication with alcohol. I'm pretty sure he wasn't drunk.
Okay. What about prescription medication? Would that give rise to that as well, or no?
Let's see what he was on. Not aware of lithium or Paxil causing anything like that.
Okay. So you're attributing his cranial nerve testing showing the horizontal jerk nystagmus to brain injury. Is that correct?
That is a strong possibility, although, as you mentioned, it may not be from that, but I'm just putting that in the same
Okay.
category.
So it could be from something else.
It could be from something else, yes.
Fair enough. You also indicated that you conducted what's called a motor exam. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you indicated that he had normal strength but exhibited a cogwheel rigidity on his right.
Oh, you got that in my report. Yes.
Yes, I did.
Cogwheel rigidity is something you see commonly in people who've been exposed to antipsychotics.
Okay.
So that tells me that he was exposed to some antipsychotics at some point in his life.
Is there anything else that would give rise to any issues relating to his motor exams?
That is it for tone and motor.
Okay. You also indicated you had some difficulty because he was restrained. Is that right?
Because he was what? Restrained? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, it was hard to examine him. And most of the stuff I was able to get done though.
Well, it was hard to examine them, sir. And if Mr. Wilson had difficulty due to restraints, how can you rely upon his motor exam and muscle tone as it relates to your ultimate conclusion that there was some kind of brain injury?
Because I worked my way around it.
Okay. How did you work your way around it?
Well, I had to have him remove one arm at a time. It just took longer.
And then that didn't compromise your assessment?
No, it did not.
Okay. You also indicated that you conducted what's called sensation or a deep tendon reflexes. Can you please describe for me what exactly was involved in that?
Deep tendon reflexes are, I bring up my reflex hammer and I tap on tendons of his arms, his knees, and his ankle jerks. The tendons in the arms are going to be the brachioradialis, biceps, and tricep. Patella is going to be the knee, and ankle jerk is the Achilles tendon.
And you indicated that there are brisk and ankle jerks are normal.
Yeah, his arms were
patella and his ankle. Is that right?
His arms were decreased, his patellas were increased, and his ankle jerks were normal.
You also indicated that his gait was normal on the coordination testing.
His gait was normal, and coordination. He had on finger and nose, he had some pass pointing on the left side. It means I have him touch his nose and touch my finger as I move my finger, and he shot past it a couple times.
Okay. And what would that indicate to you?
A coordination problem on the left side.
Okay. And what would give rise to that, sir?
Left cerebellar injury and any inputs from the cortex to the left cerebellum.
Okay. Would there be any other causes, sir?
He decided to start faking again.
Okay.
I'm just that cerebral problems maybe it may have something to do with antipsychotics, just because those are very the dangerous drugs.
Mm-hmm. So after you performed all of these various tests, you came up with a conclusion that you drew that he had several significant head injuries, but you have no records to support them. Is that correct?
This is correct, but this is common in people in the criminal world. They hit their heads hit, they're either on probation and they don't want to go to doctors, or they're not they don't think they're really hurt that badly when and actually they think they're hurt badly, they just don't go to doctors because they don't want to get arrested or they don't have insurance or some reason. They lack records. And a lot of times they may have gone to the doctors, but sometimes the records are so old that no one has them anymore. But he has no record because.
But you actually drew up a conclusion that he had traumatic brain injury. Is that correct? Just based upon his performance on the Montreal cognitive assessment, his cranial nerve tests, the motor exam, and his deep tendon reflexes test. Is that right?
I didn't diagnose him with traumatic brain injury as of my summary. I said he had evidence that supported that injury, traumatic brain injury.
What did Mr. Wilson tell you as it relates to any of the head injuries?
The first thing we talked about that he was about his childhood. I was looking for head injuries in his childhood, and he said he was good until about 11, until he told his parents that he thought he was going crazy. Then he told me about a car accident in Tallahassee. He was a passenger, and the driver rode off the highway and hit an oak tree. He knows he hit the windshield. He was brought to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, but left AMA.
Mhm.
But I have no records about that. And then second car accident. He was on probation. And he was at the beach with friends. Took the dirt road back. Took the dirt road back into the back seat. And again, the car hit a tree. Everybody got knocked out. When he woke up, he started to run because he was on probation, didn't want to get arrested. And then he felt bad and went back to the EMS to get evaluated. And then he just left because he didn't want to go to the hospital.
Okay.
They asked about sports. So he had two times when playing football, or one time when playing football where he got knocked out, and one time playing baseball he got knocked out. He ran into something. Ran into I can't read my rating. But since there's no records, I'm not going to try to read it. Then he's been he got with fights. Another thing. So he never got knocked out when he was in a fight unless he got jumped. And he's been jumped approximately 3 times, in which he got knocked out each time.
Did
Wait,
you
sorry,
did you
I-
bother?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You were saying?
Then he told me about his biological parents. That his mother was only 14 when she had him, and was using drugs when pregnant with him. She used drugs all the time. That's why he assumes that. As the father was as well.
Is it fair to say that is all information that was provided to you by Mr. Wilson? Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did you bother to look up any records or make contact with any of the individuals that he had mentioned in his self-reporting to you to corroborate any of that information?
He didn't mention any individuals other than his biological parents.
Okay. Have you spoken to his biological parents?
I have not, because I'm not going with drugs. I'm just a comment that I noticed, or that I took in.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of what you said. I have not, because I'm not going with drugs, and then I
I'm not
didn't,
putting that part of my content.
thank you.
Are you familiar with any of the occupants that he had been riding around with? Did he give you any names
He did not.
and where this all occurred?
Tallahassee. But I don't know any documents.
He didn't give you any names as to who that was.
He did not.
He didn't tell you where this occurred other than it happened up in Tallahassee.
Now the second one was coming from the beach on back roads. And since there's not beaches, a little bit distance from Tallahassee, that was probably Panhandle Beach.
Did he give you a date and time, any type of location, or was he just very general and vague?
Can you give me dates other than years ago? He's very indescript with time.
You would agree with me, he was also very indescript as far as location goes.
That would be reasonable as well.
Did he tell you when he played sports and when he sustained those 2 concussions?
High school.
Okay. Both times?
Both baseball and football.
Did he tell you what years in high school?
No, that's something I could look up though.
Okay. Did he tell you when in high school?
He did not.
Did he tell you how in high school?
The baseball, he ran to a tree or something like that, or ran into something, got knocked out.
Let me ask you, he ran into a tree while he was
I
playing
can't-
baseball in high school.
ran to the fence or something. I can't read my writing. They
Okay.
ran to something and he says he got knocked out.
Okay. But you don't have anything to verify or corroborate what he's telling you as it relates to that, correct?
I do not have anything to corroborate any of this. Right.
You also note and that he reported to you that he had some kind of vertex headache if he shakes his head. Is that right?
Yes.
And he complained that he has chronic neck pain.
Yes.
What exactly, can you please describe for us what chronic means?
Chronic means that it's been present more than 6 months.
Okay. And what percentage of people with head injuries report chronic neck pain?
A majority of them do.
Okay.
I don't have an exact specific because I need to look it up because I don't do my own statistics. But in my practice, everyone that I've ever seen with head injury also has neck injury because the head is attached to the neck.
Well, are there any other causes of chronic neck pain?
Age, degeneration,
Hmm.
congenital problems.
Well, do you have
Cancer.
patients that have chronic neck pain that don't have single head injury?
I have people with whiplash who were in car accidents who didn't hit their heads, but got their neck whips. So typically they have neck pain. So you have neck pain without head injury. But if you have head injury, you usually have neck injury too.
But you can have chronic neck pain without having head injury. Is that right?
You can't have that, yes.
All right. What about chronic headaches? Can you have a chronic headache without having a single head injury?
Yeah, you can have migraines just from bad genes. You could have caffeine overuse headaches. You could have stress-induced headaches. Having chronic headaches isn't confined to having head injuries, but head injuries definitely increases the risk of having a headache.
All right. Let me ask you this as it relates back to the 2 concussions they sustained while playing sports. Was there ever any medical care for any of those concussions that he's supposedly sustained while playing sports? That you're aware of?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. All right. Now, do you have any evidence as it relates to any knockouts from the fights that he sustained?
No, I do not have any evidence of.
Okay, so you don't have any medical attention that was ever reported as it relates to that. Is that right?
I'll make this quick. There are no medical
Yep.
reports of anything with him that are outside of being in jail.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Now, doctor, let me get to your request for the CT scans and the MRI scans. You had an opportunity to review those scans?
I hadn't requested the CT scan. I'd requested a CT PET.
Okay.
There's a
Well,
difference.
you received a series of scans. You received the CT scan from April 23rd of 2023 that you acknowledged earlier in the deposition, and you also received an MRI scan from August 21st of 2024. Is that correct?
Right.
All right.
I did not receive a neuroquant analysis or any kind of analysis of DTI. It was just DTI without any kind of analysis. Computer analysis.
Now, what did you learn or ascertain as a result to the scans that were conducted on August 21st of 2024? So just a few days ago.
His MRI shows mild ventricular asymmetry. Ventricular asymmetry results in cognitive and emotional problems in the setting of psychiatric disease.
Okay.
That's one thing. Also, I did not have neuroquant, which would show this ventricular asymmetry, as well as one of my impressions of his brain was that his ventricles were overall small. Whenever you see small ventricles in people, it suggests that they have increased intracranial pressure, which could be why he has chronic headaches. And that the bulk of his brain doesn't have any atrophy, except you start seeing some atrophy in the frontal lobes, as well as the anterior temporal lobe. But overall, his brain looks good, other than this little bit of atrophy he has in his anterior temporal lobes and his frontal lobe, which is going to be impairment in executive function, and impairment in memory, which kind of reflects that MOCA we just did.
Okay.
But with the temporal lobe, you also get emotional unregulation.
Now, you said the ventricles were relatively small.
The ventricles are relatively small. I mean, compared to
Okay.
other age-matched controls I have, and his ventricles are small. They're asymmetrical, but overall they're smaller than typical. In my experience, if I were to get a PET scan with people with big brain and his activity, PET scan would be markedly abnormal with big brain, but doesn't work.
Yeah.
He's not a genius. But I do not have a PET scan.
And what exactly did you say regarding his frontal lobes?
He has mild atrophy of the anterior portion of his frontal lobe, as well as the bottom part, the inferior frontal cortex, the orbital cortex.
Okay.
You see the little space between the gyri.
Okay. And what does that indicate to you?
This indicates that some of the head injuries that he told me about were likely true, because you see atrophy in these areas of brain when you have head trauma, because it's the area exposed to skull in deceleration injuries.
And you're saying that based upon his upon these scans that you're seeing sites of atrophy?
Mild atrophy. It's not a ton of atrophies. So this is going to be, he's still relatively young. I think as he gets older, this is going to get worse. But as a result, this is indicating that these parts of the brain have been affected by head trauma.
What about the axial grayscale images? What did you see there?
The gradient echo?
Yeah.
I mean, for bleeds?
Yes.
I saw no blood, no. There's no evidence of hemorrhage prior to this. Or prior to
Did you see any cerebral infarctions?
no cerebral infarctions. He's also a young guy. Why would he have a stroke?
Was there any other MRI findings to suggest deceleration injuries to these areas?
I'm going to show a couple images from DTI that show a lack of coloring in part of the left frontal lobe.
Okay. And what would give rise to that?
What usually gives rise to it would be axonal damage, which would be from head injury. But you can also see it in white matter disease, but he has no white matter disease.
What about drug use?
Drug reuse would cause symmetrical whole brain problems because drug affects the entire brain. The only drug I know that causes atrophy would be alcohol. The other drugs would affect neurotransmitters, and that's why that PET scan would have been a lot more useful, is to see what his brain had, what happened to it, because that tells us more of a function, where MRI just tells us structure. MRI is all about structure.
Now, doctor, when we're talking about the CT scans that were taken back on April 7th of 2023, Mr. Wilson was taken to the Lee Memorial Hospital, and he had a CT scan done, and those were provided to you, as well as the MRI that were just taken back on August of this year. Did you
Yes.
have an opportunity to review those scans as well?
I reviewed the scans as well.
All right. You also had the opportunity to, as you indicated earlier, that you had an opportunity to review the jail medical records, which would have included the Lee Health records as well. And in those records, there was a report that specifically found that the ventricular system was normal for Mr. Wilson's age. There was no acute intracranial hemorrhage, mass effect, or midline shift. No extraaxial fluid collections were present, and no territorial hypodensity to suggest acute infarct. The paranasal sinuses are free of significant mucosal disease. The skull base and calvarium are intact. The impression was there was no acute intracranial abnormality. What do you make of that, doctor?
It's a negative CAT scan.
Right.
But if you look at it, you can see the ventricles are not.
I'm sorry?
You can see the ventricles are asymmetrical on the CAT scan as well.
Mhm.
Does that end? Does it constitute something in an emergency room? You call it abnormal? No. It's not something that you'd call in a radiologist would call in a hospital, because they're not really. It doesn't constitute a disease, but it's important if someone has a psychiatric illness.
Okay. But you indicated to us earlier that you weren't evaluating him psychiatrically. Is that correct?
No, but I've seen that he's been treated for psychiatric disease. The medications he's on, lithium, suggests he's got bipolar disorder.
Hmm.
And bipolar disorder, from what I understand, is a psychiatric disease.
Okay. What do you know about bipolar disorders, doctor?
It's treated by lithium and Depakote as the two main drugs. It's a mood condition characterized by low mood, depression,
My what impression, please?
low mood or depression,
Thank you.
and then followed by hypomania or mania, elatedness, which then sometimes can turn into psychosis if the mania is left untreated. So you have manic with psychosis. You control the bipolar, then you don't see psychosis at all.
And you'd agree with me, sir, that you're not a psychiatrist. Is that right?
I am not, but I am boarded by American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. In neurology.
Okay.
So there's a little crossover.
So you rely upon the DSM-5 on a regular basis?
No, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a neurologist.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. When we have a CAT scan that reflects that Mr. Wade Wilson's brain essentially is normal according to the radiologist, and then you apparently a year later come up with a conclusion that he has traumatic brain injury, how do you reconcile the two, doctor?
Well, first of all, a CAT scan is not really powered for looking for TBI unless you have bleed in it. If you have blood in a CAT scan, that's something. But if it's negative, you're not really seeing a whole lot because you can't see differentiation between white and gray matter. It's basically a fancy X-ray. MRI, radiologists are looking for disease. This test did not have neuroquant, didn't have any computer analysis of atrophy, had no computer analysis of DTI, and the findings are mild. They're not overt to where radiologists can say, "Oh, there's pathological atrophy here." They're not going to say that. That's just the nature of radiologists.
So, doctor, is there routine evidence that would support clinical use of advanced neuroimaging techniques for diagnosis and or prognostication of traumatic brain injury at the individual patient level?
Ask the question again.
What I'm asking is there sufficient evidence to support the routine clinical use of advanced neuroimaging techniques for diagnosis and or prognostication of traumatic brain injury at the individual patient level?
It's the only test we got. We don't have anything to show anything else. I think in time we'll have better technology such as tau PET, which will actually be very useful for traumatic brain injury, but that's not commercially available right now. All we have is what we have here, and that's so we use the tools we have to best prognosticate the best we can. But okay. Nothing is 100%.
So, doctor, for patients presenting with an acute traumatic brain injury, what remains the imaging of choice?
Acute brain injury, a CAT scan. because you want to make sure there's no blood on it. We don't know the level of TBI. We don't know if there's a subretinal hemorrhage, an epidural hemorrhage, a parenchymal hemorrhage. Once we exclude that and there's no hemorrhage, people can still have TBI. That's why we do an MRI. MRI by itself is typically not that useful in the acute phase, whereas DTI is then used because that is useful for acute head or subacute traumatic brain injury.
Now, when we talked about the CT scan, you indicated that asymmetry would be reported.
No, it's not going to be reported by a radiologist, but you can see it on the CAT scan.
Okay. Did you observe any on the CAT scan?
Yes. There's mild atrophy of this lateral ventricles.
Okay.
Or lateral.
And what would that suggest to you?
The asymmetry of the lateral ventricles supports cognitive and emotional difficulties and people with psychiatric disease due to myelin being unequal.
Would it also suggest a shift due to a possible pathological process?
No, pathological process would cause shift of the entire hemisphere, not just make one ventricle bigger than the other. This would be ventricle is bigger because of the less brain on that side, loss of something on that side to make that ventricle bigger.
And doctor, if the myelin was unequal, wouldn't that show up on the DTI?
I don't think so, because we're looking at axonal pathways, and the axonal pathways shouldn't be affected too much. I have to look at it, see there's a paucity there. I don't actually know the answer to that question.
Okay, fair enough. Doctor, when I'm looking here at your request for the radiology order, you specifically indicated that you did not wish to have any of the studies interpreted unless mandated by the institution. Is there a reason for that, doctor?
The radiologists read it for disease. They're not looking at it from a criminal perspective.
A criminal perspective?
Looking for traumatic brain injury from explaining behavior point of view. And also I've had radiologists miss things at times, in which case I have a hard time getting that beat up or thrown out because this one's obvious and they missed it and I can't get it changed. So I just rather have them not do it at all.
Okay, well, but in this particular case, you actually did receive a record from Lee Memorial Health Systems regarding the CAT scans supporting what they had observed on Mr. Wilson back in April of 2023. Isn't that correct?
The CAT scan is negative for acute injury.
Okay.
So that's all there is to it. And I agree. There's no acute injury there. There's no blood on it. That's all you can see from a CAT scan.
And are you essentially telling us that you're more qualified than a radiologist to read these CAT scans, doctor?
I'm not arguing with the radiologist.
Or to read the MRI, doctor?
Some radiologists, yes, not all radiologists. There's some good radiologists out there.
Okay. Well, are you familiar with a doctor by the name of Joseph D'Alonzo?
I do not know Joseph D'Alonzo. Who's Joseph D'Alonzo?
Okay. Well, he's a doctor. He's a radiologist who read the CT scan without contrast, who indicated that there was no acute intracranial abnormality. in Mr. Wilson.
And that statement is correct. It is true.
So taking us back to Mr. Wilson, what is your conclusion in this particular case, and why are you testifying tomorrow?
I am testifying that Mr. Wilson reports several head injuries in his years before this crime. And that as a result of these head injuries, he sustained some, in addition to a psychiatric disease, some of his behavior is explained by his head injuries. His impulsiveness, his unregulated emotion that gets acted upon without any kind of checks and balances by his frontal lobe.
And what do you base that conclusion on, doctor?
Mild atrophy of his anterior temporal lobes, which is where his amygdala is, which is part of his limbic system. The very mild atrophy of his frontal lobes with the loss of DTI in the left frontal lobe. As well as I don't think anybody's going to argue that that's not his behavior.
How do you know that's not his behavior, doctor?
That is his behavior.
Okay. How do you relate that back to October 7th of 2019?
The first murder when he basically killed the first girl after she laughed at him or something. I don't know the details because I wasn't there. But when I read that basically she laughed at him during sex and he lost and he killed her then. Then he jumped in a Jeep and he found somebody else and killed them too. Sounds like someone who got very angry without control of that anger and acted without any sense of responsibility or consequence.
Okay. Are you familiar with the facts and circumstances of this case, doctor?
As far as I just said they were, but I'm not, we need to go back and see exactly what he did. And I don't actually have, I need probably trial stuff to see what he's actually convicted of.
All right. Just let me take a brief moment. Hey, doctor, I don't have any further questions for you this afternoon. I want to thank you very much for taking the time.
You're welcome. See you in the morning.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Did someone want to ask about read or wave?
I won't have time to read it. So wait.
I just, okay.
Andreas, are you asking it be typed?
I will, and I do.
And you have something tomorrow?
Yes, sir, we do. 9 o'clock in the morning.
You need it by 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, I do.
And where will you be at 9 o'clock in the morning? So I know where to take it.
I'll be in courtroom 7B.
Mr. Shirley, did you want a copy?
I suppose I have to. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Doctor, thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor.
I'll see you tomorrow morning. Are you gonna have anything to bring with you, like thumb drive or anything?
I'll bring a thumb drive.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, guys. I'm gonna end it. So I mean, he did. I mean, I guess he is showing some brain atrophy, which, you know, which isn't really that surprising, like I was saying, because it's not an excuse. It's not giving him an excuse, but this guy is evil. Look what he did. So it does kind of make sense that somebody that could act like that is not right in the brain. So who cares if it's biological or mental or whatever it is? The end result is the same. You know, it's this guy that could freaking kill somebody with no feelings. Like, it makes sense that he has some brain damage. You know what I'm saying? It's not an excuse, and he probably still might get the death penalty, but it kind of sounded like he had a little bit of atrophy, which is like, you know, dead brain, like basically brain damage in the amygdala and frontal lobe. So the whole laughing at sex, I thought there was more to that. I always thought that there was something that she probably made him mad somehow. So I bet you they have reports that maybe there's some redactions, or I'll keep going through the files to see if I missed anything, but I have not seen anything where it says that's why. But he got to talk to Wade. So what if Wade told him that? You know what I'm saying? What if there's somewhere where he heard that, where we weren't able to hear that? But that makes a little bit more sense. That she wasn't just sleeping, that he's not going to tell, he's not going to brag about, oh yeah, she laughed at me during sex, that he's probably so embarrassed by that, right? To tell anybody. I bet you that's it. I don't know. I mean, maybe the doctor's just wrong. I don't know. But that kind of makes sense. That could have been what happened, what set Wade off, don't you think? Anyway, wow, that was pretty interesting. The doctor seemed nervous. Also, I feel like sometimes, like, those brain doctors, they're not probably as good with like speaking and like social stuff. I don't know. I'm gonna do a little bit of we should look into him. We could Google him and see what his ratings are, but wow. I don't want to say, like, I have a lot of thoughts after watching that, but I'm going to kind of bite my tongue, because considering what happened to my live last night. But I mean, I think we all saw what happened, and I'm just going to choose to like not say much about it as far as about the expert that was talking. But we all saw it, so that's all I'll say. Yeah. Yeah, he was unprepared. That's the thing. But I think he was like he seemed like he was really nervous. Unprepared. Maybe he got a little bit of anxiety where he froze up or something. I don't know. I'm glad they let us in. How awesome was that? So there was 3 of us. All of us were from the media. The one that had the picture of the face. So I was in there before I shared my screen, where we were saying where we're all from. So, you know, I told him I was from zavgirl, my channel. She was from a TikTok, the one that had the picture of her. She said TikTok news or something. So she probably has a channel on TikTok. I missed what Thomas said, because there was one point where I couldn't hear anything. So I had to go in my settings. Thank God I figured out how to hear the sound. It was coming through my the sound like was going through my mic, so I couldn't hear it instead of my earphones. So I had to go in my settings and switch it. So I saw him talking and I couldn't hear. I was like, oh my God, I can't hear. And then finally I got it. But yeah, that was really cool that they let us. Thanks to Shirley. That was all Kevin Shirley right there. And I don't know if I shared the screen right away when he started talking. I forget when I shared the screen, but right off the bat, he's like, no, I think, it should be allowed. He kept being for it. So now I kind of like him because if he wouldn't have spoke up first, he was the first guy to speak up when they were like confused. They're like, what should we do? He was the first one to speak up. And I think if he didn't speak up, I think they would have made us leave. I really do. They didn't know what to do. They're like, I don't know. Like, hey, the link was on the site. Hey, Rhonda, thank you. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. Don't leave, you guys. I've been holding it because I wanted to watch that. I'm definitely have to watch this over because I didn't get to hear everything I was typing and I missed some stuff. Yeah, thank you, Rhonda. Yes. See, when it's something like that, I'm on time. Like when it's something that's planned, like a hearing or it's live streamed, then I'm on time because I don't want to miss it. I'm usually like 15 minutes before so I can get ready for it. So don't worry about stuff like that. I am always on time. Like tomorrow for the hearing, I'll be on time. I don't have trouble making it on time when there's like something specific that we'll miss if we're not there. It's just like when I'm just going to go present my stuff and it's not a big deal if I'm late in a way, even though I don't like keeping you waiting, but in my brain, I don't know, I can't get there, but like, I'll be on time tomorrow too. Thank God. Yeah. Because we would have missed it if I wasn't on time. I actually had it up the whole time. I had it up like 20 minutes early. I had Zoom up. The court reporter was in there. She's probably like so curious on who I am. And she might've been talking to me. I didn't realize I had no sound. So when she kept looking up, she probably was asking who I was, but I couldn't hear it until I realized when we all got on there. And I was like, so I don't know. She might've been asking me that whole time. I'm so glad I figured it out. The audio though, because I don't usually use Zoom. I've used it for one other hearing and that's it. Anyway, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back, guys. And I have a couple of videos we could watch. I wanted to watch that law and crime one that they did on this case. And then there's that this one that everybody's been sending me. It's I think it's that Wade supporter did that interview on that one channel that we were talking about yesterday. We could watch that together. I'll be right back. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Wait, let me think. Thank you, Jill. Thank you. Thank you. I don't think, okay, I should put a poll up. If you guys think that that's going to affect the judge's decision. That's a tough one. Now, I watched The Law and Crime. We're going to watch it today. It was from a few days ago. That lawyer says she doesn't think it probably will affect it if they did find traumatic brain injury. But the crazy thing is why couldn't he say, like, yes, he had traumatic brain injury? He wouldn't say that. Like, so is he not sure? I mean, he kept saying atrophy, but is that considered? Does that meet the mark of the TBI? Because he wouldn't officially say that. Is it because there wasn't enough to say that? You know what I'm saying? It was like really like not as clear of what he was saying. So was it just like normal type stuff where it didn't meet the qualification of being TBI? Because he never said that. Did you guys hear him say that? He didn't say that, but he did say atrophy. And then the ventricles were small, which I still have to go back and I want to listen to how he explained what that could affect, because I missed the beginning of that. I caught the end where he said the ventricles were smaller than normal. And then he said the atrophy in the frontal lobe and the amygdala, he had atrophy. So, no, I know it can be, Blueberry. But my thing is why didn't he say that though? Because he said what you think he's saying, atrophy should be TBI, right? But he never said, my conclusion is, yes, he has traumatic brain injury. He never said that. So I don't know. All right, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. Oh, it got YouTube. Took it down. I know. I am mad. Are you kidding me? I'm so mad. I put a lot of work into that timeline. I'm editing. Thank God StreamYard. So when YouTube takes it down for policy violations and it's a live So I have no copy of it. They just rip it down. You have no access to it. It's gone forever. But StreamYard keeps 50 hours. So I had just cleared it out. So I had it. I was able to download it from StreamYard. So I'm going to go through and edit the timeline part and put it back up. And I'm going to like just blur out all the addresses because I don't know. They just said it fell into bullying, cyberbullying, and harassment. Somebody reported it is what happened. And they don't tell you. It's 7 hours. So which part is it? They don't tell you. I have no, YouTube won't tell me what part was the problem. So yeah, they took it down. I'm really mad. I'm really mad. But like I said, I'm going to put the timeline part back up just with the blurred addresses in case if that was the issue. But okay, I'll be right back though. Hold on. Oh, I'm a little nervous. My computer's supposed to be up here by 2 and it still hasn't came. Oh, I'm kind of nervous. I hope they don't deliver it to the wrong spot, but I mean, it's signature required. Okay, so yeah, so what do you guys think? I mean, that was really cool, pretty interesting. I'm really cool that they let us stay. The doctor, oh my God, that's like comedic gold right there. But like I said, I'm just gonna reserve my comments because I don't want this video getting taken down too. Because yesterday I didn't even I think I made fun of Wade's teeth. I mean, but I don't know. That's wow. That was something. So remember, he did have a CT scan. So if there want a PET scan, why didn't they? If he said he said MRIs are pointless by itself, well then why didn't they request a PET scan too? I don't get that. I'm a little bit confused. And if they are, then how you had an MRI? Now we know previously they had CT scans. Because remember, they had him, I don't know, I forget what month, I think a few months ago, or I'd have to go back and look. They had him and they didn't find anything, remember? So then they requested an MRI. So I don't know. Anyway, how are you guys doing? Oh, I don't know. I don't know what the issue was. All right, let's play a couple videos. Well, let's watch the wait, so I wonder, the Spencer hearing, the Spencer hearing, because the judge wasn't here. So the Spencer hearing, they'll present that to the judge, the new evidence, right? And then at 9, and then after that, they'll decide. The judge is going to decide. I'm going to do a poll because I want to know what you guys think. If you think it's going to change the judge's mind. And then let's watch this video real quick. Hold on 1 second. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm checking my emails to see. Because a lot of people, you guys send me good stuff. Just give me 1 minute. That was really good though. How long? It was only like what, an hour and a half? Oh, thanks for watching it with me. All right, so what is this? So the person that sent me those screenshots, who is that? Who is the victim? I don't understand who you're saying the victim is. Hold on. So if I read it, I know what it's about. Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second, guys. Evidence of essay. I don't know. I'll wait to share it because I don't know who that's about. All right, so we're gonna play. Wait 1 minute. I'm just getting the videos that I want. We'll play. Oh, you guys want to see how much it went up? I haven't refreshed the page for his Fundly. You guys want to see? I keep it up so then I could do it live. All right, let's see real quick. Hold on 1 second. Oh, thanks, Jordan. Or wait, yeah, thank you. Oh, really? Okay. Okay, cool. Not cool, but thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Curious KV. And Rhonda. All right, so let's see. Let's see what it went up to. So yesterday, it was at 71,672. It went up what? Like 600 or 700 bucks? Dang it. I'm averaging like 600 or 700, estimate like around 700 bucks, right? Or 650 or something. Dang it. It's going up. All right. All right, let me get this video here. There's a few different ones. So we could do hold on 1 second. I'm trying to find interview just came out with the one who represents Wade's legal. Oh, this is the one. A lot of people are sending me this. Okay, let's see. Or actually, first I want to play. Let's do the law and crime one first. It was from a few days ago. All right. Here we go. We're going to watch this real quick. Watch it together.
Oh, that's a name you recognize. And
Oh, because they talk about if, you know, if the results come back with
The
TBI.
way that he presents himself, he reminds you of almost a cartoon villain.
memorable defense. Now, his defense is saying there's some evidence that Wilson has traumatic brain injury.
He's got a diseased mind. We can't relate to that. It's hard for us to know what's going through his head.
So doctors are going to check this all out and
None of
see if
them.
Wilson really does have brain injuries. That's right. He's actually being transported from the Lee County Jail in Florida, likely in shackles, to a medical facility for tests. And the clock is ticking. He's set to be sentenced next Tuesday. That's where the case's judge will make the major decision to either uphold the death penalty recommendation or sentence Wilson to life in prison. So how did we get here? Let's let prosecutors explain.
The defendant went there to have a good time, and he discarded the woman he came with, and he chose one that caught his eye, Christine Melton. And as he told detectives, this is what I do with women, you know. I use my charm, I use my good looks. That's what I did with the first girl, and that's how I got in her head. And look what happened to her. When the defendant first approaches Christine, he's not threatening. He's smooth, he's charming. He's nice to her and her friend Stephanie. They party together, no red flags, no sign of aggression. He's a fun guy, but he waits. He waits until he's back at her house, in her bed, and Stephanie has gone home. He waits until he is alone with her, until there are no other witnesses. He waits until she is asleep, defenseless. The defendant says she can't get away from him, even if she wanted to, because he's too strong. And when she can't get away is when he kills her, when he strangles her, because he was the lion and she was the prey.
Wilson met 35-year-old Christine Melton at a bar with live music in Fort Myers, Florida. It was October 6th, 2019. And then, as prosecutors described, he strangled her to death after she took him back to her Cape Coral home. Here's what Wilson's biological father testified to at his trial.
He said he met a girl at a bar. They went back to her house, hung out for a little bit, and then she fell asleep.
What did he say happened after she fell asleep?
He said he got on top of her and choked her.
What name did he call her? Did he refer to her in a derogatory term?
He said, I choked that.
What did he say he did after he choked her?
He said he stayed in the house for a little while, and then he rolled her up and was going to try to put her in her trunk, but he couldn't lift her.
Did he say why he was unable to put her in her trunk?
He said that he felt like rigor mortis had started to set in.
And does rigor mortis make your body stiff? You didn't know?
I think so. Yeah.
So he just told you that that was the reason that he couldn't lift her and get her into her trunk?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he said her trunk, it was the trunk of her car he was going to put her in?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did he tell you he did when he couldn't get her body into her own trunk?
He left her there and took her car.
So what does Wilson do after that? He drives away in Melton's stolen car until he sees 43-year-old Diane Ruiz walking down the street. He pretends to need directions to a nearby school, and she gets into the car. That's when he strangles her and later runs over her body with that stolen car. After this, he called up his biological father and told him he ran Ruiz over until she looked like, quote, spaghetti. He confessed to both murders during these phone calls, which were later discussed at the trial.
When he talked about these two people who were no longer with us and that he was a killer, did he show any type of remorse?
No, ma'am.
Here's where we get into Wilson's potential traumatic brain injuries, because the defense called a forensic psychiatrist to the stand.
So did you make any diagnosis or determinations based upon the information that you had?
Yeah, my diagnosis and belief is that Mr. Wilson has some kind of psychotic disorder. Sadly, because he was not particularly forthcoming with me, I can't characterize it very well. So I don't know exactly what Mr. Wilson has, but I think it is very significant.
The defense kept pushing this theory of brain damage, but the jury didn't buy it.
As to count 1, first-degree murder, Christine Milton. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that Wade Wilson was previously convicted of a felony and under sentence of imprisonment or placed on community control or on felony probation. Yes. We, the jury, find unanimously that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that Wade Wilson was previously convicted of another capital felony or of a felony involving the use of threats of violence to the person. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that the first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. As to count 4, first-degree murder, Diane Ruiz. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that the first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes.
Jurors then recommended that Wilson be sentenced to death. And now it's up to Judge Nick Thompson whether that recommendation will stand or if he gets life in prison. That pretty much brings you up to speed on the case. So let's bring in today's expert guest, former Florida prosecutor Melba Pearson. So the story today, Wade Wilson, this is a very memorable trial. Looking at the defendant, his name, and then the crime itself. So if we're just starting with that, what are your feelings about Wade Wilson, the trial, and the verdict?
Yeah, so Wade Wilson definitely will go down in history as one of the more perturbing, let's say would be a nice way to put it, defendants in our criminal justice system. Unfortunately, in the way that he presents himself, he reminds you of almost a cartoon villain, but his actions were definitely no joke. And this was not a cartoon. Sadly, this was real life. And 2 women lost their lives in a very horrible, violent manner. So I think the verdict is appropriate. I think the evidence clearly showed that the defendant was guilty of this crime. And now it's just a question of whether or not he should be put to death or if he should spend the rest of his life in prison.
So this all happened, that verdict came down back in June, and we've had a sentencing date. It was set for July, then pushed again, but now it's August 27th, and that's less than a week away. But now his defense is saying, hey, we want to do some brain scans. We think that that's appropriate. Do you think that's kind of waiting until the 11th hour? I mean, we're less than a week out from when he's set to be sentenced.
So it's not unusual for sentencing dates to be pushed out multiple times, because what generally happens during that period of time between the verdict and the actual sentencing date includes what we call a pre-sentence investigation, where the personnel from the criminal justice system, whether it be through the courts or probation, it differs from state to state, but they literally do an investigation into the defendant's life, their history, how they were raised, did they have prior contacts with the criminal justice system? Did they have addiction issues? Were they maybe a child that was born addicted to drugs? You know, as you think of the mom being addicted and unfortunately that was passed on to their child. Are there developmental issues that the court should be aware of? Things of that nature. And also they speak to the next of kin or the victim's family to understand what they would view as justice, as well as interview the defendant himself. So all of these things happen before sentencing, and sometimes these interviews can reveal new aspects that the defense may want to bring up as mitigation during the sentencing hearing. Because again, keeping in mind, this is a death verdict where basically the judge is deciding whether to go with the jury's recommendation of death or to do life in prison. And so, of course, the defense team is going to want to bring up as many different aspects as possible that can serve as mitigation to say, listen, you know, he shouldn't be put to death. He should spend the rest of his life in prison. And here are some of the reasons why.
When most of us think of traumatic brain injuries, especially in relation to a convicted murderer, one specific condition and defendant come to mind.
So if they had some inkling that he may have had CTE, then that could be something they could bring up during sentencing and say, listen, what he did was heinous, but there was an explanation, which was he had brain trauma. And while he knew what he was doing was wrong, people who suffer from CTE often struggle with impulse control issues, anger issues, bursts of violence, things like that. One of the most high profile examples of that would be the Aaron Hernandez case, where he was a New England Patriots player who was convicted of murder, but it was revealed upon his death and after his brain was studied, after he passed away from suicide, that he had CTE from repeated hits from high school, playing ball in high school to college, all the way to the pros. So that was an explanation, not a justification, but an explanation for why he may have reacted the way he did and why the homicide occurred. The same could be said here.
Wilson's brain scans are coming just before the sentencing hearing. I mean, it's only a matter of days. But to be fair, brain damage is something Wilson's defense has been preaching from the start. And this is something his defense brought up several times throughout the trial. If you followed along, I'm sure you saw it. They actually had a forensic psychiatrist testify and talk about mental health issues he may have or conditions. What was really interesting about his testimony, though, is that Wade Wilson apparently wasn't super cooperative. So this doctor wasn't able to pinpoint exactly what he should be diagnosed with, except that it was significant.
His scores indicated that he was non-compliant, that he answered the questions, that's kind of partial compliance, but that he invalidated each test by exaggerating symptoms that most people do not have, or most people do not have to that same degree. So in effect, he said, wow, I've got every symptom in the book. And of course, every symptom in the book is many too many symptoms. Even people who are seriously ill only have some symptoms.
Jump to now, when additional doctors are taking a look at him, they say it's possibly indicating traumatic brain injury, and that leads to the scans, what you're referring to, the CTE, potentially what it could potentially be. Now, if this is approved, he's heading to the hospital. That's where things get a little sticky too, because he's leaving the prison. How does all of that work?
Well, lots and lots of security. So generally, when you're dealing with people that are in custody and having health issues, they try to do their best to treat them or examine them in the prison setting or the jail setting, wherever they're being held. But this is a test that is much more advanced and more intricate than what the jail or prison would be able to provide. And so now he has to be transported to a hospital to do this level of testing. So obviously there would be multiple guards that would be traveling with him to the hospital. They would be stationed outside of the room to make sure that he doesn't escape, or to make sure that someone doesn't come in and try and harm him in retribution for what happened to the victims. Also, they will be trying to just, again, assure that there's no other outside interference and basically get the results as soon as they can and transport him back. Or if it's a situation where it's emailed later on down the line, then that ends up being the case. But also another thing to note is that the date and the location of where he's being tested is being kept secret. And again, that speaks to the high level of security that needs to be maintained to ensure that there's no escape or no retribution before he is sentenced by the court, or the final sentence has been imposed by the court.
Honestly, for me, when I saw this being reported that he's going to go in for these brain scans, it got me thinking about this Grey's Anatomy episode, actually, where an inmate was taken to the hospital for whatever it may be, her condition. She needed surgery. I can't exactly remember, but she kind of prolonged her stay. She wanted to stay there longer because the hospital was more fun, so to speak, than the prison. So is that something that the medical professionals and the guards, let's say there, will be keeping an eye on so that he can't harm himself and prolong his stay at the hospital?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The hospital is not going to want to have to deal with the drama of having multiple guards and, police personnel in the hallways for an extended period of time, because you have to also think about the other patients in the hospital and family members who are coming. It's very disruptive to the ordinary operations of the hospital. Not to say they're not prepared for it and they can't handle it, but they certainly don't want to prolong this longer than they have to. So of course, he's likely going to be handcuffed while he's laying in the bed for any procedures. They're likely going to try keep any sharp objects away from him, things like that, and maybe even have him on suicide watch if that's something that's a massive concern. And of course, it is understandable that he would possibly want to stay in the hospital because, hey, the food might be just a little bit better and the environment is a little bit better. But then again, at the same token, any of us who have been to the hospital knows getting a good night's sleep in a hospital is pretty impossible as well. So can't say that one is necessarily that much better than the other. But be that as it may, I don't believe the hospital will allow him to prolong his stay in any way, shape, or form.
As Melba pointed out, when Wilson is getting these tests and even where he's getting them isn't being revealed publicly. So we're kind of in the dark there and with what comes next. So we don't know when we're going to get the results, but let's say we do have the results and it comes back and he does have traumatic brain injury or maybe even CTE. How does that change things in terms of the verdict, his sentence, all of that?
Well, the verdict remains the same because the jury heard the evidence and they made a decision and came to a verdict based on the evidence they heard. So that's not going to change anything. The question is going to be in terms of whether or not he's going to be put to death or if he's going to serve the remainder of his life in prison. And now that's going to be up to the judge to make that decision. The jury recommended death, but at the same token, the judge does have the power to override that verdict based on any, new information that may have come forth. And if the defendant is in fact diagnosed with CTE or traumatic brain injury, it's possible that the judge can say, well, that is a massive mitigating factor in whether or not he should live or die. And so it is possible the judge could come back with a life sentence, but there's no permutation where the defendant's going to get out of prison or, get some other type of sentence. He's either going to get life or he's going to get death. Period. End of story. There's nothing in between.
I think something to highlight too is that the opposition to this death sentence, whether it gets overturned in an appeal down the line, is life in prison. And I always think back to the Parkland school shooter trial. Judge Elizabeth Schur, she was very strict about it and said, in the state of Florida, life in prison, there is no parole. It's life in prison. That is what it is.
Do you understand that in Florida, life in prison does not carry parole like other states? Do you understand that life in prison means the term of your life? It means you will not come out until you are no longer alive. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. At the end of the day, he's not getting out. To be blunt, the only way he's leaving prison is after he's passed away. So whether it's through the death penalty or through natural causes because he served a life sentence or some, violent event happens to him in prison, which again, sadly, that is the reality in U.S. prisons and prisons.
That's why I don't care. Like for me, I know there's a lot of people that'll be disappointed if the judge decides to give life, but my outlook on the death penalty and this kind of stuff, I could care less. Like life in prison to me is just as good of a punishment as death penalty. I know a lot of people do disagree, but to me, like it's not a big deal what the judge decides. In my opinion, it's still life. You know what I'm saying? It's still like the worst possible sentence. I know, like she said, though, it just depends on how people look at it. Some people think life is worse. Some people think the death penalty, because if you're on death row, that time in prison is going to be a lot more cozier for you than being life in prison. Because don't they have better quality of life, the death row, I heard, right? So it's like, it just depends on how you look at it. So I'm not going to be mad either way. I know some of you guys are all nervous if he doesn't get it, but like to me, they're both equal to me. He's not getting out. His life is gone. He's not going to be a part of society or a part of the outside, the free world. So it's not a big deal to me, but what about you guys? How many people are like me and you could either way is good enough? I'm just curious. I should do a poll sometime on that. to see.
Around the world, there's homicide in prison. So, that's the only way that he's leaving. And I also want to remind people that jail is not a pleasant experience. Prison is not pleasant in any way, shape, or form. I think people sometimes have the impression that somehow a death sentence is more preferable in some ways. And, again, it all depends what you believe in or whatever the case may be. But understand you are living in a very tiny room with a person that's not necessarily friendly. You don't have that freedom of autonomy to be able to move around, to, you get a couple hours of exercise on the sunshine outside behind bars. You're watching your family members literally abandon you in a lot of cases. You watch your partner move on with someone else. You watch your kids grow up or be raised by someone else. You may not have family members visiting you after a while. So it's not that he's going to now be in prison and he's living in a lap of luxury. It's going to be a grueling experience.
I thought it was better.
So, and he'll have plenty of time to think about what he did as the world moves on without him. So either way, it's going to be a severe punishment. There's no easy way out in this scenario.
We're all waiting to see what will come out of that sentencing hearing. But even leading up to it, there's already been movement in Wilson's case. So we know that the judge denied a new trial. This is something Wade Wilson wanted, but he's not getting that new trial or the acquittal. Something he is getting, though, is this Spencer hearing on evidence. This is something I'm not super familiar with, but why it stood out to me is because it's scheduled for 9 a.m. the same day of his sentencing. So that's 9 a.m. And then at 2 p.m., he's supposed to be sentenced. Is this something that normally happens, a hearing before the sentencing hearing?
Yeah, so normally all of the things, just to be, I guess, more expeditious in terms of time, normally all of it would happen around the same time. So you wouldn't necessarily have a 9 a.m. hearing and then come back again at 2. Maybe you could have the situation where the evidentiary part happens at 9 a.m. and then the judge takes a break and then basically ponders what he thinks in this instance, male judge, so he thinks it would be the most appropriate sentence, and then comes back at 2 to render said sentence, right? So basically to say, okay, I've considered all of the facts that I heard during the course of the trial. I considered the jury's verdict. I considered the aggravators that the prosecution brought forth in their arguments during the Spencer hearing. And then I considered all of the defense arguments that they brought forth and the defense experts they brought in to talk about the mitigating factors, and my sentences X. So normally it would, kind of happen all around the same time. But clearly, because I think of the severity of what we're dealing with here and the fact that there might be extensive medical testimony that may be presented, and also if the defense has other evidence that we're not aware of at this juncture, but again, going to those mitigating factors. So maybe there's childhood trauma they want to speak about. Maybe there's some undiagnosed psychiatric condition that they want to bring experts to talk about. You did mention that during the trial, he was not cooperative with the psychiatrist at the time, and it was difficult for them to diagnose him with anything. Well, maybe he got more cooperative now that we've gotten closer to sentencing, or maybe he exhibited other behaviors that gave the observing team of experts more information to come up with a diagnosis. We don't know, but I would be very interested to see what other evidence they'd be bringing forward as mitigation. We know clearly what the aggravating factors are going to be, just the manner of death, the fact that he targeted these women, the way they suffered. This falls under the traditional definition of heinous, atrocious, and cruel, which is the standard for death penalty cases in Florida.
The state of Florida is playing a major role in this case. I mean, it's where all these crimes happened, but it's also one of only a handful of states that still have the death penalty. And that's just the reason I wanted Melba as a guest. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you specifically today is because you're a former prosecutor, so that's great, but also down in Florida, so you are pretty familiar with this type of case. What do you think is going to happen? Just based on your assumption or your hypothesis, how the judge is going to fall one way or another?
I would not be at all surprised if the judge allows the death sentence to stand and then let the defense fight it out through the appeals process. Because if a higher court comes back and says, you know what, the evidence that was presented in terms of the defendant having traumatic brain injury, CTE, or some other illness was more persuasive and he should have gotten a life sentence, well, the appeals court can send it back to the trial court and he can go ahead and impose the life sentence. End of story. I don't see a scenario where the defendant ends up with a life sentence. I don't see that. I think because of the appeals process being a way to be a check and balance on the judge, if the judge is like, well, I got it wrong, the appellate court can tell me so. If I got it right, the appellate court will confirm, and the appeals process will still take a while. Regardless of this aspect, you're going to have the underlying trial itself and the usual appeals process in terms of, I don't think I got a fair trial, or certain evidence shouldn't have been admitted, or I had an objection that was overruled and it should have been sustained, or, those types of things. There's going to be an appeal regardless. So this would just be another issue in the appeals process.
Right now, there's 278 people on Florida's death row, which is the second largest in the country. And some of those inmates have been on Florida's death row since the 70s. And there's a big reason why. So you spoke about the appeals, and that really goes hand in hand with a death sentence, in my opinion. And you said there's going to be an appeal. That's something we can expect to see. So when I say that somebody has been sentenced to death, it kind of goes in the back of my mind that they probably will not be put to death for quite some time. I mean, it could be years that sometimes we see people who are sitting on death row, and then sometimes, as you said, it's overturned. So do we have a lengthy process ahead, even if the judge upholds this sentence of death?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say on average, most death penalty cases go through the appeals process for a solid 10 years. That's not abnormal. So this is not something that's going to be resolved in the next year or two. This is going to be a very lengthy process, which I know is going to be very difficult for the next of kin of the two women that were murdered, because again, every time there's a new hearing or a new petition or a brief is filed or something, the families end up getting notification, whether through the prosecutor's office or, something along those lines. They're still worried in the back of their mind, is this verdict going to stand? Is this conviction going to stand? Or are we going to have a situation where we're going to have to do this all over again? And that's pretty scary for a family to have to grapple with. So yes, this is not going to be something that's going to be right.
Okay, guys, I am going to end it now because dinner's ready. My computer still hasn't got here, so I want to be downstairs because it's signature required, and I want to make sure I don't miss it. Yeah, that was a good live though. That was very interesting. I'm definitely gonna have to watch that back. Oh, and then yeah, my live, those of you that were coming in and didn't hear me explain it, it got taken down. YouTube took it down for a policy violation. Don't know why. It was 7 hours worth of stuff. They don't tell you freaking hours, like 6 hours, I guess. I think it was like 6 hours and something. They don't tell you what when you get a violation. They don't say, they just say what it was under. It was under cyberbullying and harassment. So I don't know what it was. I don't know what part. They won't tell you. I've tried to ask them, can you tell me what exactly? So I know, so I can learn. And then next time I know what you're allowed to show. So I know what's allowed. They don't do it. So I don't know, but I'm going to do the timeline. I'm working on editing the timeline because I spent a lot of time doing the timeline. So I'm going to, like I said, I was able to, so when YouTube pulls down for a strike or a violation, they pull it down and you have no access to it. But StreamYard, like I said, saves your last 50 hours as long as you delete it. Let's say I get 50 hours filled up and then I don't delete the recordings and it's filled, but I had just deleted them a few days ago. So I had room, so it saved it. So I was able to download it. So I'm going to edit the timeline part and put it back up. But I don't know. I don't think I'll put back up all the records of all the people because I'm thinking it had something to do with that. I'm not sure though. they're all public records, so I don't know what it was. It makes me mad because we went over a lot of good stuff in there too. So yeah, it sucks. Not my choice. Anyway, but no, it was a good day today, guys. That was interesting. All right, I'm gonna go. I will see you tomorrow at like 8:45 early. It's gonna be a long day. All right, bye guys.